Good evening. Welcome to this session on the arguments for the existence of God. Someone once asked Bertrand Russell what he would say when he stands before God on the judgment day, and if God asked him, "Why didn't you believe in me?" Russell said, "You did not give me any evidence. There is no evidence, God, not enough evidence." Are people willing to believe in God if there are enough evidence? If you hang around skeptics or atheists for quite some time, you would hear them say, "I would believe in a God if he comes before me and say that I'm God." Or he would write something on the sky and say, "Hey, I'm God, I exist." But for such a people, if God comes even before them, they might think later that I was hallucinating. Or even if it appears on the sky, they might say that this is just some lightning effect. So, what are the convincing arguments for the existence of God? How do we convince such people? Today, I'm going to present 5 strong arguments for the existence of God. But before presenting the argument, I would like to say that my motive behind this presentation is that this subject is extremely important. It has a great bearing on your life and how you live your life. If I could go back in my life and change one thing, there are many things I would love to change. But if I'm asked to change one thing in my entire life, I would go back and gain those years which were lost when I was walking in depression, angry on a God who allowed evil. I was angry, I was sleepless and bitter. If only I knew that God is loving. And he was holding me and carrying me, though I did not see him. Through my pain, I would have been at rest. I would have known his purpose in my life much earlier. That's why I say that this subject is very, very important. And I encourage each and every one of you to listen carefully, to reserve your questions at the end, or to put them in the chat box. Why are you here? Are you here to find evidence for God? You can post your replies in the chat box. The very fact that you're here and want evidence for the existence of God is commendable. It means you're not willing to believe in anything. You have taken the first important step. So hold on till the end. First of all, what do you mean by evidence? If you believe that God is a physical being like you and you want to see him, like how you see another human being, I might not be able to show. By definition, God is immanent and God is transcendent. Both. He is very present in the world, but he is also beyond space and time. And he is a spiritual being. He is not a physical being. Thus, when you're searching for God, you cannot find direct physical evidence for his existence within space and time. Though for some people, God has revealed many times through visions and dreams and directly, God often remains hidden. Many say that they have seen God's in vision and dreams. Even in my life, I have clearly felt God's presence 2 times. The first, when I was in ventilator due to a massive pneumonia. He showed himself to me through a vision and revealed the cleansing of my sins from the blood from his cross. And I could hear his voice clearly 3 times that I am giving you new life. The second time recently, I had severe swelling in my both knees and I could not walk. And one day night when I was praying, I felt the heat and the touch in my both knees. And the next day, I could find out that my swelling has vanished. Other than this, I can clearly talk about the change in desires, dreams, and hopes when Jesus became part of my life. I would call these things as experiential evidence. But experience alone cannot be put forward to argue that God exists. To find a wooden cup, you cannot use a metal detector. To find God, you need to use different tools. Today, I'm going to present 5 different tools. Arguments from cosmology and arguments from biology, arguments from reason and arguments from morality and arguments through special revelation. What am I going to argue for? I am going to argue for the existence of an invisible spiritual being who is transcendent beyond space and time, but very present in the world. The one who intricately designed the universe and set it in motion and who designed everything so that human life would exist. And then to save the human race, entered this planet, lived among human beings, died on the cross to save them, and then rose again on the third day and hung out with them, spent time with them. These are all big, big claims of Christianity. If you're on the other side of the team, you might think like some of the atheistic philosophers think. Friedrich Nietzsche said that is man merely a mistake of gods or God merely a mistake of man? In the God delusion, Richard Dawkins contended that a supernatural creator, God almost certainly does not exist, and that belief in a personal God qualifies as a delusion. Now, if there is certainly a delusion among people who believe in God, he should be able to present this criticism properly. Why I am saying this? Now, if there is a criticism against another worldview, like Christianity, that asks us to believe in a personal God who can do incredible things, we should put that criticism along with an alternative. For example, I want you to know that criticism without an alternative is empty criticism. Without alternative, it is meaningless. So if I criticize someone else, I should be able to provide a better suggestion for that. If someone says that your faith is stupid, you should ask them what they believe and if they have any better suggestion than what you believe. It may you can put both these alternatives into scales and you can weigh which is better, which makes sense better to describe the natural world. So now today I'm going to present all the 5 evidences, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them side by side, and so that you can yourself discover at the end which is the worldview that makes most sense. Does God exist or God does not exist? So you can yourself choose. Let me first take you to cosmological argument. In this one, there are 2 separate arguments. The universe had a one-time beginning. The universe is finely tuned for life to exist. So the cosmological argument has 3 premises. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. So the universe has a cause. So now let's unpack each of these 3 statements. The first premise, this statement says, everything that begins to exist has a cause. Does everything that begins to exist have a cause? The answer is yes. It's common sense. Almost nobody denies it. The statement simply means that something cannot just spring into existence randomly and without a cause. I cannot have a chicken without an egg. If this premise is violated, chickens can pop up everywhere, babies can emerge out of nowhere. The most sought after question in science is the origin of things, and especially the origin of the universe. No question is more important than why there is a universe and why there is a universe and there is, instead of being nothing. This is the most curious and most enduring of all metaphysical mysteries. Till the beginning of the 20th century, many scientists believed that the universe was eternal and uncaused. If the universe was eternal, then there would have been no need for a cause. David Hume said, how can anything that exists from eternity have a cause? In a BBC radio debate, Bertrand Russell said the universe is just there and that's all. However, the discoveries in the early 20th century suggested that the universe had a beginning and the space had been expanding since then, and it is still expanding at an increasing rate. That means the universe was smaller yesterday compared to today. And if you go back around 13.77 billion years ago, it started at a point, and that is famously called the Big Bang. This marked a veritable turning point in the history of science. This is the most remarkable discovery of modern cosmology. Of all the great predictions that science has ever made over the centuries, this is one of the greatest phenomenon. This phenomenon is so fantastic, and this expansion of the universe is such a great phenomenon. That's what John Wheeler said. This finding gave birth to a more existential question. If the whole universe sprang from a single point in time and space, how did it start? We study about Big Bangs in our schools and colleges, but we don't study about who banged the Big Bang. British astrophysicist Sir Arthur Eddington in 1931 said that the expansion of the universe was so incredible that it seems to present great difficulties unless we agree to look at it as frankly supernatural. Sir Arthur Eddington was a strong atheist. Sir Fred Hoyle wrote regarding the origin of the universe is supposed to have begun at this particular time. But from where? The usual answer is an unsatisfactory one. That's from nothing. For many people, this one-time beginning was troubling because there's something outside the physical universe needed to be introduced at that t is equal to 0. Those who thought in an eternal universe was forced to accept an eternal God or something that existed before time itself started. So we cannot now say, just like he said, that the universe is just there and that's all. For the universe is not just there. It came into being. Now, if the universe began to exist, it does not have a necessary existence, nor it is eternal. Therefore, the reason for its existence cannot be part of the universe. But in some sense, it should be transcendent outside the universe, because the universe simply cannot spring into existence. It is not a self-creating universe. So what's the conclusion? Everything that begins to exist should have a cause. The universe began to exist. And if that is the case, then the conclusion is it logically follows that the cause should be transcended beyond the universe. It must be material beyond matter and space. It must be eternal beyond time. And if it has created something as massively complex as the universe, it must be tremendously powerful and intelligent. Well, a transcendent, immaterial, eternal, supremely powerful and intelligent cause. What does this sound to you? As a Christian, I think that beginning is explained when I open the first page of my Bible and read, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth." Now, if you don't believe in God, what is your alternative? The alternative can be, like I read recently about this atheistic claim that our whole universe came from nothing. And from nothing, it magically exploded. They believe in quantum fluctuations, random fluctuations, or cyclic universe, or virtual particles, but all these explanations are scientifically flawed. And so the only prevailing model is the Big Bang model. Now you can refute my argument and say, okay, well, if everything that exists has a cause and God exists, then what caused God? But the premise does not claim everything that exists has a cause. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Since God, by definition, does not begin to exist, he is eternal and he never began to exist. So this first premise does not apply. So the rhetorical question, what created God, is like what created the uncaused being? That's why this question is technically wrong. Aristotle voiced many thousand years ago what he called the unmoved mover. If you pass and think, who caused you? And you would say that it's my parents. And who caused your parents? That goes all the way back. And there was some cause at the beginning that wasn't caused. That cause should be uncaused and self-caused. And that's when we end up in the God of the Bible. He's an unmoved mover. He's a self-caused and uncaused. So that is the cosmological argument. The universe had a beginning. Now next we'll go to the design argument. The universe is beautifully designed. Let me share my screen. So next we will get into the design argument for the existence of God from cosmology. That's teleological argument. So we have been seeing about 5 different arguments from cosmology, arguments from biology, arguments from reason, arguments from morality, arguments by special revelation, and finally I would conclude. So we saw about how the universe began. The universe had a one-time beginning, and if that is a beginning, who caused the beginning? Who caused the Big Bang to come into existence and the whole universe to come into existence? So now we are going to see the second most important argument from cosmology, the design argument, the teleological argument. In recent decades, scientists have been stunned by the discovery that the initial conditions of the Big Bang were finely tuned for the existence of intelligent life with a precision and delicacy that literally defy human comprehension. The physical laws and constants are finely tuned for life to exist. So if is there a super intellect behind this fine tuning? If there is a designer, has he taken so much care to design all the parameters so intricately so that intelligent life can exist? You know, the mass of the universe is so finely tuned. You can see the numbers. 1% more or less, no stars or planets would have formed. In the same way, the gravitational force constant is finely tuned to about 1 part in 10 raised to the 40th power. If the proton to electron mass ratio and the neutron to proton mass ratio is changed by a significant degree, many essential compounds like DNA cannot exist. Astronomers has given an account of around 25 to 30 parameters that have been exquisitely finely tuned for the life to exist. Not too hot, nor too cold, nor too large, nor too small, nor too big, nor too small, nor too far, nor too near. The universe appears to be standing on the knife edge of its existence. It's like winning a lottery from all combination. It's really mysterious. You know, many cosmologists wonder why the universe suspiciously looking as though it has been designed to make life possible. Various remarkable features of the universe soul shows that there is a fine designer, there is an intelligent designer behind the universe. Stephen Hawking even says that the cosmological constant related to this is so finely tuned. He says that why did the universe start out with so nearly the critical rate of expansion that separates the models that recollapse from those that go on expanding forever, that even now 10,000 million years later, it's still expanding at nearly the critical rate. If the rate of expansion 1 second after the Big Bang had been smaller by even 1 part in 100,000 million, the universe would have collapsed before it ever reached its present state. You know, it's amazing, 100,000 million. Now, can you see this dice? This is 4, this is 3, this is 6. Now, let me take, what is the chance of getting a 6? It's 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So, the chance of getting, for me, if I roll the dice to get 6 is 6. Now this is, it's not that bad. Now what is the chance of getting the 6 in a row of 2? I should get, when I roll the dice, I should get the 6, and then next when I roll the dice, again I should get the 6. Now what is the chance? If I see the chance is now 12. So I have to be pretty lucky. Now what is the chance if I have to get 6 times continuously 6? And that it goes exponentially high. Now, what if I roll this dice 70 times and every single time I got a 6? It's really impossible, you think, right? I roll the dice for 70 times and every time I'm getting a 6. Now, if you tell me that I have to stand here and keep rolling the dice so that I will get 70 times continuous 6, then what are the probability? What is the probability? If you ask a mathematician, they would say that I should be rolling the dice for 100 trillion years before I get continuously 70 times this die. When I roll this dice, I should get the 6. Apply that thinking. Ask what the odds that you and me are here. So many fine tuning and so many constants and laws. Those are the same odds of something called the expansion rate of the universe, the mass of the universe, the gravity, everything. Now let's assume if you there are 200 parameters that had to be finely tuned for life to exist. Now let's assume that we are traveling out in space. And we are accidentally landing in a space station and stumble into the control room of the whole universe. There we discover the universe creating machine with rows and rows of dials, each with many possible settings. If you are when you are investigating, you will learn that one dial is for strong nuclear force, one dial is for gravitation constant, one for the ratio of neutron mass, and many other things. Now, what do you infer? If you just stand there and try to change a little this side, a little that side, and then you feel that intelligent life cannot exist, what do you infer? The fine tuning suggests that there is a fine tuner, a super intelligent being who is beyond the cosmos, and he has built a design. This illustration was given by Stephen Mayer of the Discovery Institute. Fred Hoyle, an atheist, says that common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics, chemistry, and biology. Paul Davies says scientists are slowly waking up to an inconvenient truth. The universe looks suspiciously like a fix. So what's going on? It seems as though somebody is mingling with the nature's constant and nature's laws, and the impression of design is overwhelming. Even Greenstein asked, is it possible that suddenly, without intending to, we have stumbled upon the scientific proof for the existence of a supernatural being? The former agnostic Paul Davies acknowledges, this is for me powerful evidence that there is something going on behind it. It seems as though somebody has fine-tuned nature's numbers to make the universe. The impression of design is overwhelming. I think we should come to the rational conclusion that the universe is not a result of randomness. Someone ordered the cards, or someone arranged the dice, someone designed the universe. That's what Bible says in Romans 1:20. Since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities and his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen and being understood that from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. The universe is not only designed, but our galaxy, our planet, Earth itself is intricately balanced so that intelligent life can thrive. There are many exoplanets. There are many planets in the Earth which are rotating around a star. But till now, scientists have never found one extraterrestrial. Fermi asked a question once, where is everybody? The SETI, there are search for extraterrestrial institutes have been set up everywhere, and they try to send electromagnetic signals into the space, try to receive signals to find out somewhere some life can exist. But till now, they've never found. Why? Because our universe and our planet itself is intricately designed. Let me just explain you, because the habitable planets are rare in the universe. Our Earth is special. So people like Carl Sagan and others, atheistic scientists were telling, our Earth is just a tiny planet in the whole cosmos, and there is no significance, there is no purpose. But when we see our planet, it's just only one habitable planet. It's a privileged planet. It's a rare planet. Our Earth is something special. Why Earth is so special? Is it intelligently designed by an intelligent designer? Is there any underlying purpose behind it? So our solar system is located in the inner rim of an arm called Orion Arm in the galaxy, Milky Way galaxy. If it would have been located little inside, there is a big black hole called Sagittarius A that would have gobbled up our solar system. If it would have been little out near the outer side, then there will be no elements for life to exist. Now there has to be a host of conditions that have been fulfilled for life to exist. The Earth, for our location is so important. The Earth had to be just far away from the sun. If it would have been little more far away, then it would have frozen. If it would have been little close, then we would have been heated up more. So it's exactly at the right place, and at the right place where liquid water can exist. So the Earth's relationship to the sun is so favorable. It's in the habitable zone. And similarly, our Earth has a transparent atmosphere. And this transparent atmosphere is exact amount, because if it were more transparent, we would have been bombarded with far more solar radiation. If it is less, then we cannot get the solar radiation. Now you see here, the position of the big planets like Jupiter and Saturn is too beautiful that any comets coming from the outer area, they protect so that we will not be extinguished. You know, dinosaurs once ruled the world, but they were removed because of one powerful meteor that hit the Earth. So it's so important that the location of our planet is very important. So it is exactly located in the right place. If our Earth gravity is slightly stronger, our atmosphere would contain too much methane and ammonia. If it is weaker, Earth wouldn't be able to retain water. And similarly, oxygen is only 21% in the atmosphere. If it is 25, fires will erupt. If it is 15, human beings will suffocate. Similarly, Earth's crust, it's so exact. A thicker crust would impact the quantity of oxygen. And the moon is so critical to our existence. Our large moon, if it is there, our Earth cannot stabilize itself on its orbit or in rotation. So the right moon, the right size, everything is so important. So now coming to the biology design, if you see, there are two types. One is how did life come from non-life? So we have finished cosmology. Cosmology, we saw how the universe sprang from nothing, and then the second, how the universe was designed. Now we come to biological evidence. So there are many evidences in this. There are many arguments from this. How life came from non-life. How the complexities of life arose. Can it be designed without a designer through naturalistic evolution? How did the information arose in DNA? Why our brain is different from mind? How did consciousness come into existence? These are some of the existential questions. So now, how did life come from non-life? How chemistry became biology? You know, initially people thought that they can make life into existence. That is, they can make amino acids. 1953, University of Chicago graduate Stanley Miller announced in the laboratory of Harold Urey that he could experimentally show that lightning in the Earth's primitive atmosphere could have produced amino acids. That is the chemical building block of proteins. Because this was widely advertised, and it is now also in the school books. But in the same year, when James Watson and Crick said they have found the secret of life, the elegant double helix of DNA, they were startled that every billion cell in our body has an exact copy of the DNA, and averaging to around 3.1 billion bits of data in a small thing. Now they thought, this experiment you see, they have used a different atmosphere. Early Earth had oxygen. This experiment did not use oxygen. They had used a trap, which was not there in the initial. Only 2 amino acids are produced, but we need 50 amino acids. And we need a left-handed and handedness was a problem. And most of the outcome was toxic to DNA. So this Miller-Urey experiment is now removed. Because when you see this DNA, this double helix structure of DNA, you are startled, because every cell in our body has an exact copy. And in each tiny dot, there is 3.1 billion bits of information. If you try to read it aloud day and night, it would take 31 years to read that 3.1 billion bits of data. The complexity of DNA is highly sophisticated and ordered, ascending and transcending the realm of science to that of miraculous. Scientists are wondering, how could a self-replicating information carrying immensely complex molecule like this spontaneously arise from inorganic compound? DNA, how can it come out from just as inorganic compounds in the initial Earth atmosphere? So now nobody talks about Miller and Urey. So what they think might be the first life could have arose in some hot springs in the ocean. So now why it is not coming? Why life is not coming from the ocean? So otherwise the life could have come from some other planets or some other galaxies. So if life has come from some other planets, Who started life in that? So you're pushing the question one step backward. Astrophysicist Fred Hoyle said, he was an atheist, and he said the probability of life originating on Earth is no greater than the chance that a hurricane sweeping through a scrapyard, and it would have had the luck to assemble a big Boeing 747. That is a chance. Because they saw this DNA, it's a language. You write like in computer, you have a beautiful language, 1-0. And the similar way, machine code of how you write that in a computer, machine codes, and the similar way your DNA has a language. Can a language come on its own? So it is more advanced than any other software, Bill Gates said. So how did this information come into existence? So within the single cell contain so many, we have this DNA molecule. Gene is a short section of DNA. Your gene means how you look, more like your grandmother or more like your father. Every cell contains this detailed instruction code. And so it's so beautifully complex. So it shows that we are not machines, but we are made in the image of God. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. That's why Jesus said that he loves us so much. And Jeremiah 31:3 says, I love you with an everlasting love. The classic march of progress is impossible. You need the probability of one protein to get one DNA from this amino acids is less than 10 per 123. And similarly from proteins to a cell, and you can see I have put the probability. Such a high probable to become a cell from an amino acid. To get a cell from an amino acid, you need 10 power 119,776. Now, the classic march of progress image, a simple progression from a crouching ape to upright humans depicted by Darwinian evolution, just by blind processes, cannot explain how the big complex brain and how our complex eyes have come into existence. Can there be a design without a designer? Francisco Ayala said that Darwin's greatest accomplishment is to show that there is a design without a designer, there is no need to resort to a creator or any other external agent. There can be a design without a designer. Is that possible? You look at this one. This is a Eagle Rock. You can see it's a pattern. Similarly, the cloud is a pattern, but Mount Rushmore, this has the face of all the president. This is a design. So when you see this rock and the president's face, somebody has designed it. So everyone knows there is a design. It's foolish to reject a designer. Now look at this. Everyone agrees there is a lot of beautiful design in biology. God's creation is beautiful, detailed, ordered, and complex. Why horses can run fast? Due to their huge lungs and heart and the capacity to extract large amount of oxygen. That's why they are running. If you are a car designer, you will increase the power by the turbocharger. The same thing horse has. Camels have amazing feature that can cope up with harsh desert environments. And they have non-sinking feet, 3 eyelids and eyelashes to protect them from the sea, desert storm and others. Elephants have a unique trunk, and similarly, dolphins can beautifully sing. They can send their voice for a long distance. And coral reefs, they are so beautiful. And this cuttlefish can camouflage its color over different colors based on the environment to escape from the predators. It can camouflage. And so like this, there are a lot of design. Even you can see the bird, how beautifully it is designed. Wright brothers examined the camber of the wings of birds for years and understood that the wings are producing the lift. And they copied the shape of the bird's wings and they control the shape through pulleys attached to the wings. And that's when they were the first one they could take up the flight. So this naturalistic evolution, when we say right from a primordial soup to a man, is totally false. Even Darwin himself said, often a cold shudder runs through me, and I have asked myself whether I have devoted my life to a fantasy. Now, if the cosmos is given a mic, what does it speak? What does it shout? You can imagine what's going to speak. Psalm 19:1 says, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Job 12:7-10 says, ask the animals and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, they will tell you, or speak to the earth and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you, which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this. From the very moment time started at the Big Bang, the Creator set the universe in motion in such a way that everything is so well ordered, and all these are working together in one big, delicate masterpiece. This is not an accident. There is design all around us that points to a great designer. We can recognize that design and simple things, and it is really foolish not to recognize that designer. When we think of the beauty, what do we think? We think of nature. We think of sunsets, beaches, mountains. Beauty doesn't happen accidentally. Artists takes years practicing their craft to make beautiful things. Well-designed things are not accidents. With God, something can come from nothing. God can produce order out of chaos. He can produce something out of nothing. So so we saw biological evidence, we saw cosmological evidence. Now when we come to the evidence by reason, how did reason come from non-reason? We're all intellect, we have will, and we think. How this thinking capacity came? Can it be evolved from a primordial soup? How it could have evolved? So think of a consciousness. So how can our consciousness emerge from unconscious matter? As humans, we are free agents. So we have freedom. We have freedom to think and do works. And how all these things came into existence. We are much different from chimpanzees. Two of them cannot even hold a log of wood and walk. They are not social animals, but we do it. We love relationships. How it is possible? The next is moral evidence. There are laws that are governing the cosmos. We all know that. But there are unseen laws that governs how life should go, how every human being should function. If a human is functioning in that way, all the human beings, then our world will be a beautiful place. But since some people are not following the rules, there is chaos here. In the same way, in family, in society, everywhere, there are rules built in. When we break this moral laws, our conscience, we have a conscience. That conscience fills us with guilt. You can kill an ant, but when we see somebody killing a child, you cannot take it up. You will get angry on them. That's why, because you are having the moral code built in. Who has built in the moral code? Why would God put this inside us unless he cares for us? We all feel deeply. Human life has value, we think. That's why we know that we don't treat humans equivalent to how we treat an animal. Because human life has value. We are all made in the image of God. All men are created equal. What makes us what gives us that equality? What gives us that value? What gives us this dignity? Unless we are made in the image of a great and powerful God, we cannot explain this. Modern evolutionists say that our morality is just a biological adaptation. It's just like how your hands or feet evolved, your morality also evolved. But that is not rational. If I said that you should have an alternative, cosmology also we failed. There is no proper alternative. In biology also there is no proper alternative. Now you see, reason, you cannot tell that how it can pop up from it. Nothing. Morality. We have an intellect. We have a will that governs the things, and we can choose between the alternative. You can choose by either you are evolved from a primordial soup into a great human being like this. Try to calculate the time what those evolutionists are saying, you will end up with so many years that the universe was not there. If our life does not have a meaning and it's just an accident, what is the use of our existence? We are just a stardust. That's what Carl Sagan says. But we are made of materials that also stars are made. The same designer has used the same building blocks in us and in the stars. We are much more than stardust. We have reason, we have mind, we have soul. When you take God out of the equation, you know what happens? It's very difficult. If you think that we are just Homo sapiens, somehow we have sprung up and we are trying to survive, that's what happened. When Darwin's theory, people started to believe, they thought that they should weed out the weaker components of mankind so that the stronger components can succeed. The stronger human beings can succeed. So, there was a great movement called Eugenics. Eugenics was a word coined in 1883 by Francis Galton. He was a cousin of Darwin to demonstrate the superiority of a particular group or a race or a nation. So that America, they saw the triumph of this eugenics movement, and they brought in compulsory sterilization laws. The state of Indiana passed the first Sterilization Act in 1907. This practice could be carried out on those who are insane, those who are not healthy. And so hundreds of families who they thought that they are spreading disease and crimes, why they are like parasites. So better remove them. Better let us remove them from the world itself. So compulsory sterilization. Now, by the 1930s, over 30 states in the United States of America had passed sterilization laws. And the campaign reached its highest in 1927. So this is so bad. Hitler was also carried away by this view. That's why he thought the superiority of his race. And that's why he started to remove all the Jewish people. But he put them to severe torture. There was one... Joseph Mangala, he's a doctor. He used to take the twins, 8 years, 9 years boys, and he used to do very, very cruel experiments on them. Some of the kids were put out in the cruel winter to see how long they will take to die. Some of the kids' eyes, they used to put dyes to see whether their eyes colors are changing. So these are all they did to increase the longevity of the human race, they thought. For them, these people are no use. They don't have any value. Then the moment you take God out of the equation, how do you think about the absolute moral code? How do you have the absolute morality? What do you say this is good and this is right? You just think whatever is right for you, it's right. Whatever is right for someone, it is right. So that's why it's very, very important. Unless you have a meaning, why Father Damien should go to the island called Molokai and give his life to lepers. He became a leper and died as a leopard. Why so many missionaries came to India and died? Because they believe they are made in the image of God and other human beings matter. They have to do something for their life. They have to make their life also to come to some higher level. They are not just machines. So that's very, very important. Unless we know that our life has a meaning, unless we know the other lives has meaning too, we will not be able to do the things of God, of the right things that we are brought into existence. The final special revelation, natural revelation can take us only to some extent. But the final revelation is a very important, that special revelation. God himself has revealed through the book, the Bible. We are all guilty of breaking the moral code. And so God himself said that he will come down in the historical person, and he came down, and the God-man, Jesus Christ, suffered and died on the cross for your sin and for my sin. We might all think, how can a good God allow evil? How can a good God allow murder and rape and racism and infanticide and starvation and suffering? That's a good question. Even many great people ask. Even I asked once upon a time. But when you look at the cross, you will know God turned everything on his own. God has given us freedom, and we use the freedom in the wrong way. And that's why Jesus Christ took everything on him. He suffered on the cross. He allowed himself to be beaten. He allowed himself to be abused. He allowed himself to be betrayed, to be tortured, to be crucified, and he died on the cross. He took upon himself every cruelty what we can imagine to identify with us in our suffering, so that our suffering can become a meaningful suffering. We can turn our death into life, because the Creator himself has identified with us. You know, the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the last thing. It's a remarkable achievement. You know, it's historically proved. Even Oxford Press has published a book about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It is the supreme confirmation of the claim that Jesus did rose from the dead. The one who walked on the water, before one, the whole nature obeyed. The fig trees obeyed, the storms obeyed, before whom everyone one day will kneel down. He was put on the cross, and on the third day he was resurrected, and he was with his people for many days. 1 Corinthians, we can read in 15, that Jesus revealed himself to many people, more than 500, not only to his own disciples. He walked with them, he ate with them, but not only to them, he revealed himself to his enemies. And this is proved, and historically it is proved. So many people have tried to prove that Jesus did not die, and they have all become Christians. You can read books after books of Jesus' resurrection. I will take it as a separate subject. But I wanted to say one thing. Emperor Nero was the first Roman official to persecute the first generation of Christians. He ordered them to be led to execution. They went towards execution happily. They could have denied if Jesus was not truly resurrected. He came and lived with them. That's why they were ready to give their life. They were ready to do anything for his sake. So now there's 5 arguments. The first, cosmological argument, that the universe had a cause, the universe is design. And the second, biological evidence, the life started only because there is a creator, and the beauty in the design of biology and the information in the DNA. And the third, how our reasoning came into existence. Fourth, how our morality came into existence. And fifth, the special revelation, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Now, with all these things, if you put, who is the cause for all these things? The cause should be external to the universe. The cause should be a non-material and spiritual. It should be uncaused. It should be powerful enough to create everything. It should have a purpose. It should have an intelligence. It should be creative. It should have a conscious mind. It should be able to freely choose. And it should be the source of moral obligation. Finally, I leave it with you. You are having a choice, either to believe in a God who loves you and who came down for your sake. Even the great Nobel Prize winner, Arthur Schawlow, he said, "It seems to me that when confronted with the marvels of life and the universe, one must ask why and not just how. I find a need for God in the universe and in my own life." This God is so much necessary in our life. That's a beautiful hymn. "O Lamb of God, deliver us, give us that love that leads the way. The faith that nothing can dismay the hope, that no disappointment can remove that faith, and my faith should burn like a fire. And let me not sink to be a clod, make me thy fuel." Today, why don't we ask him, "Lord, I want to be a fuel for you. Kindle the flame of sacred love in my heart." This God exists. He wants our heart. He wants to live in our heart. Acts 17:14 says that he is a God who created heaven and earth, and he does not want to live in temples. He wants to live in our heart. Many of our youths have no idea what is life about. Many are empty. They are confused. They just frame the concept of God through TV, their games, their friends, and they don't think about this existential question. We hear people foolish things like, I believe in science, so I don't want God. Science is the one that is created. That's through that we are finding out about God. Science points to God. Do you know today God personally? Do you know him as a father? Is God your friend? Don't distance yourself from him. He is following you. He's pursuing you. He's a just God, and he has provided enough evidence. So today, why don't you ask, Lord, sorry for all the things that I've done. Sorry for not believing in you. And I thank you that you are so sufficient. You have done so many things. Let's close our eyes and pray. Precious Heavenly Father, I give this time into your hands and all those who are listening and who are going to listen. And Father, touch them. And Lord, if this message has spoken to them, Lord, Father, reveal yourself to them. Unless you reveal, nobody can find you, Lord. Speak to them in the way that you alone can speak, and open their ears and eyes so that they can find you. And Lord, be their friend and Father. And Lord, let their life have a purpose and meaning. If someone feels that they don't have a purpose or meaning, Lord, today reveal it to them that the purpose and meaning can come only from you. Thank you, Lord. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a wonderful talk. Thank you for loading us with a lot of information. So, people, we have a time of Q&A. Now that you've got a lot of information in your head, I believe that you'll have some of the other questions.
I'd like to ask a question. You spoke about design argument. Of course, it's told by Aristotle, and also Thomas Aquinas also spoke about that one. Now, you included also the physics and other designs also in that. But then there are scientists like Stephen Hawking himself. And that is the question that is said by Stephen Hawking. In his book, A Brief History of Time, he doesn't bring in God at all.
Okay, yeah. So they believe that at one point before the Big Bang, if you go and look into the quantum mechanics, that is the tiniest particles, we think that atom is the most smallest one, but atom has electrons and protons and neutrons. Now, if you break protons, still you can find smallest particles. And that's what the physics of quantum mechanics. So in that one, there is something called Hessenberg uncertainty phenomena. So any particle can pop up, and it can be here, it can be there, it's uncertain. So that is at the quantum level. So he believes that before the universe started, there are some quantum particles, that virtual particles that popped out of nothing. And then there were some gravitational force, big gravitational force, who gave this virtual particles into real particles. And then because of the particles, there were some quantum fields that were there. These quantum fields started the Big Bang. That's his idea. So that's called quantum fluctuations. And some people believe that because of the design, they bring in string theory, which says that there are many universes. So we speak about design. So they say that don't think about design. There are so many universes. So in that one universe happened to be a life-giving universe. So it's just a chance universe. So now what I wanted to argue is, if one universe to get so many conditions have to be fine-tuned, and an impersonal force like the quantum field that can come uncertainly pop up out of nothing, if it can create, how it can create so beautifully the exact expansion coefficient, exact gravity, exact mass, everything, it's so difficult. It's impossible. So even in string theory, how it started, there's no explanation. So just because some great scientists speak, we tend to believe. But when you just go inside and find out why it's happening, why they are telling, you will find that it does not have a sense behind it.
Can you explain the ontological argument for the existence of God?
It was proposed initially by Anselm of Canterbury. He said that to derive the existence of God from the concept of a being, than which is no greater can be conceived. Like, this is the being, for God is a being, no greater being than God can be conceived. So on that basis, he said he's the greatest being. He's the greatest supreme intelligent being, and nothing can be greater than a being than which we can ascribe as God. So that is called ontological argument. That is being of God. Um, so there are so many arguments like this. Even Rene Descartes has defended a family of similar arguments, and Leibniz and other people also use such arguments. So I have used today cosmological and design and reason, and then moral, and finally special revelation. But I might be going into depth in design argument based on various phenomena and in my course of talks, and even about evolution in depth.
Sister Sam here, you
Yeah.
said that when you went into that period of depression, you were very angry with God. So, what was the answer you got? How did you then you became? How did that anger went away from for God? Can you please explain?
See, why I was angry on God? Because I did not know that this God's character. You know why we get angry, why we get depressed? Because we don't know the character of God. When we know the character of God, that this God is loving, though he's so powerful, he's loving, then why he allows evil? We don't know, but he knows it. Why it happened in my life? We don't know, but he knows it. And when he knows it, he will take me across. He will carry me through. That is the character of God. So when you know, for example, you know your father and mother, and something they are not giving you, it is because they know that it is not good for you at this time. For example, you have a bank, you're going to your bank and you're trying to take some money. And the bank clerk sees something and he's not giving you money because he saw a terrorist or something in the next side, next window. Let's assume that. So, in the same way, God can withhold some good things for some time. And there are so many reasons sometimes why prayers are not answered. In my case, I was angry because my prayer for a single request was not answered for 20 years. And maybe when I go to heaven, I find out. But I'm at rest and I'm happy because I understood this God loves me so much and I can rest in that love. So that helped me to come out of depression.
Thank you, sister. So, what will be the message for me, for a person like me? Like I'm also, as you know, I'm into this depression, this valley called depression. So, what will be your encouraging message for me, for a person like me?
So, see, there is no single answer for that. Only thing is, hold on, wait. Those who wait upon the Lord will rise up as eagles. You know, eagle has a sharp ascent, and why it is able to do? Because it has a power, and when storm comes, it knows to fly above the storm. And so the same things God has put it inside us. So if you think that you are inside God's hand, and God will not allow anything evil to you except it comes through his loving hands. And Romans 8:28 says, everything happens good for those who love the Lord and who are the called as per his purpose. So hold on to it. Might be some of the questions will not be answered. You might know only after you go to heaven. But that walk with God is a beautiful walk. You might not have anyone else in the world, but only God. It's enough. John was alone in Patmos Island. No congregation, no one. He was alone. He was into an exile, but he went on holding to the Lord. That's when the Lord revealed how the world is going to end in that beautiful time. So, life can give a lemon, you make it a lemonade. That's all.
The Bible says, God's word says, a merry heart is like a medicine, a broken spirit dries the bones. Now, probably we might go through a situation where we feel depressed and broken bones, but when you take joy, as Doctor said, in the Lord, your Creator, a merry heart, saying, thank you, Lord, that itself will bring a healing to your both body, soul, and spirit.
Ma'am, I'll read it out for you. Mathematician David Berlinski said the probability of self-replicating molecule coming into existence and life coming from that is impossible. What can be said about that, or is it possible?
So mathematicians David Berlinski said the probability of self-replicating molecule coming into existence and life coming from that. Yes, it's improbable. See, that's what there is. If you see my book, I have given a lot of arguments for that. Life coming from non-life is a mystery. It cannot come because it's a chemistry. How will you change a chemistry to a biology? And for that, they said that Miller and Urey, they made an experiment and they said they brought the first amino acids. But you need 50 amino acids to be in a protein, and they have brought only 2, 3 or something. And even then, some of the things are right-handed, both 50-50 are right and left. But actually, it should be the protein should be in one-handed way and the DN, and so amino acids should be in the other way. So these handedness were not possible by their experiment. And also protein has a 3D complexity. So to get that one, it's very difficult to come in this way. And again, language of DNA to get that from when they see till 1950s, people thought, okay, it's possible. But once the DNA was discovered, they understood such a complicated system cannot come from an inorganic molecule. And that's so they found that Miller and Urey they have used a trap which was not present in the early atmosphere, in the early Earth. And the early Earth had oxygen. As per their experiment, there should be no oxygen. It should be in a reducing atmosphere. So a lot of things they have done wrongly and produced those 2 amino acids. So it's impossible. The first life has not been proved. And even to go from one living being to another living being, now I will explain that in depth in my talk on evolution. It's so difficult. It's impossible. That's what I would say.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Moving on to the next question, ma'am. Vijay Bahadur has asked, does our DNA match with the DNA of God? If yes, how?
I don't know, this question is not a proper question because I said that God is not made of atoms like how you're made of. God is not a material being. That's why when you try to search for God in a material universe, sometimes you won't see. But when you go inside your spirit and ask God's spirit to come and reside and ask him to speak to you, you will hear his voice. That's why many people have heard his voice in the spiritual realm. His realm is spiritual. So I request you do not think that God is a physical being with atoms, with DNA like you. We don't know how he will be, but he is a spiritual being. He's an immaterial God.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And the next question is, how do we explain the existence of a theistic God of the Bible to one who already has an idea of ultimate reality, Brahman, as in Advaita philosophy?
See, Advaita philosophy again contributes to dualistic thing. Like they also believe that you have a consciousness or something, but they believe that universe also has a conscious, and so um, they think that you can become one with God if you go deeper and deeper inside you. You can become one with God. That's why they do meditation, and so your soul can be released, and that can become one with the universe, and universe has the existence of God. So, but the thing is, when you go deeper and deeper inside you, you cannot become a God. God is totally different. We are not gods. Whatever you try, can you change the hair color of your hair to something else? You cannot. We don't have any power on our own. So somebody has to give us the power. So that's why Advaita philosophy says that you can also become like God. So they believe that you have power within you have energy within you, and the universe has a lot of energies, and you can get that energy, positive and negative, and that all can affect you. Those sort of belief, but they are all impersonal things. Can you think how an impersonal thing can give energy to you by wearing some ring, by wearing something? You cannot get energy. We believe in a one supreme being who is beyond space and time. It's not part of, see, as I said in my explanation, that the God who created everything cannot be part of the universe. Advaita philosophy says that it's part of the universe and everything came from nothing. So, and I don't subscribe to that based on science, because science does not prove that.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for adding your answers. Ma'am, if you're moving to the next question, humans are made in the image and likeness of God. On the contrary, science or evolution says that we've evolved from apes. How come, even though when it is proved wrong, the law of or the theory of evolution is still widely accepted? Why is it still widely accepted?
Might be people's worldview. They are not able to accept God. When you accept God, you have to subscribe to morality. You cannot do whatever you like. God has given a moral code, and sometimes people find it difficult to accept that moral code. Even people, so-called Christians, have broken the moral code many times. So when you don't have an objective morality, it's easy to break the moral code, and so it's easy to be an atheist than a Christian. So many find it easy to take the evolutionist worldview. But I would say that some of the evolution, like microevolution, is right. But when it comes to macroevolution, and from one species to another, we have changed, and from chimpanzee we have come, and all those things, I don't ascribe, because science, you said one word, that why science is saying. Science is not saying, scientists are saying, that's all. There are some group of scientists who are saying, there are some group of scientists who is not saying. What is science? Science is observation, and observation is not is telling a different way. So you cannot tell science is telling that. Science does not say. Some scientists who had the belief of Darwinian evolution, naturalistic evolution, they say that, that's all. So you should never say science is against reason. God has given us brain, so he wants us to follow him with reason. He wants us to follow him with evidence. So if you want evidence, it's very good.
Thank you, ma'am. Elroy has commented in the chat box saying Dvaita philosophy is dualistic and has creator-creation distinction, but Advaita philosophy is more fallen, angel theology, where it says you can become like the gods. Audience, if you have more questions, please do shoot it out. We still have some time left for the Q&A.
Ma'am, Sherry over here.
Yeah, Sherry, tell me.
Yeah, so I think so. The one way I think so we can share with the person having a like Advaita philosophy kind of a thing is because I think so in Advaita philosophy you have you believe God is impersonal, and so anything like if that anybody from that particular worldview, if he says that killing is wrong, murder is wrong, this is wrong, and that is wrong, if there's an impersonal God, then we can understand that morality would play an important role, as you suggested before. Like, the moral argument may not work in Advaita.
Yeah. Yes, there is no moral argument there, because when a God is impersonal, how can you say that you have moral argument? Jesus came down to this earth. He lived as a sinless person to show that it is possible when his spirit lives in us, we can also live holy life, because he empowers us. It's not within us, but his spirit empowers us. That's what Jesus came and taught us, and it's possible to live a holy life for God. But how do you know which is holy and which is not holy? Because Jesus set a standard and God has given his commandments. But in an impersonal thing like God's, you don't have a moral standard on what basis you will say. So you can have any amount of wives, or you can have any amount of whatever things you want in life, you can have. So that is not given properly. So I would say that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So hope all the questions are answered, so we can close it.
Yes, ma'am.